Welcome back, leaders. It's Ali, your embodied leadership coach. And today I am talking about the perception of disability. This is something that I am really passionate about. It's actually in the forefront of my life, and I don't talk about it nearly as much as I think I should. So I wanted to make a video because I've just had another IG live with a woman called Jess. She runs Flex for Access. And, we were talking about my experience with disability. At the age of 17, I started a dance company for people with disabilities called Bust a Move Dance. And in 2017, actually started it here in Toronto as well. So it's something that I've done for a very long time. It's something that I'm really passionate about, really knowledgeable about. And I just wanted to make a video on the perception and the bias that we have around disability. Now, we all have bias. Sometimes it's conscious, and a lot of the times it's unconscious. And when I mean unconscious, it's that we don't actually understand the motivation behind our behaviors, our thoughts, our opinions, because it has been imprinted from way back in our childhood. So let me give you an example. If when you were at school, the people with disabilities were always in separate classes, what is the story that you have created in your mind around people with disabilities? If, for instance, as a kid, your teachers were always helping people with disabilities, whether they were always holding their hand or they were always guiding them or they were always tiptoeing around their feelings, what is the story that you've made up around that, around people with disabilities? Imagine there's a kid with ADHD in your class and the language that the teacher's using is that, wow, when X and so is not on their medication, make sure that you stay clear of them. What's the perception in the story? Maybe it's that people with disabilities are only safe when they're on medication, or people with disabilities can never do anything independently and always need help, or people with disabilities are really different than us and they need to be put into other classrooms. If you never saw someone with a disability growing up, why? Is it because they were really hidden? Is it because the families had shame? Is it because they were they weren't welcome in society? Did you only see people with disabilities on TV and in media? And how were they represented? All of these examples create and build and imprint our consciousness so that now as adults, this is the way that we operate. And so for my leaders out there, my leaders of dance studios, of fitness studios, of yoga studios, of businesses, and you wanting to make your studios more inclusive, the first step to you creating more inclusion in your studios is to tackle and really get clear on your unconscious bias. So when I'm training teachers and when I'm working with business owners, this is the work that I do. I get them to reflect on moments when they interacted or had a situation with someone with a disability. What did that look like? How did you feel? What was communicated? What was represented? How has that played out in your life so far? Is it that now every time you have someone with a disability in your studio, you are overly nice to them, you're overcompensating, you're patronizing in your communication? They need a student teacher. The other students have to be really nice to them. Are they in classes with other people with disabilities? Are they never allowed to join in with the competition classes because they're not good? Whatever it is, it's important that we really get clear on how they were represented as children with us so that we understand where the motivation is for our behavior. Now, the work that I do on the flip side as well, I've noticed in my life, there's also, and now I'm not someone that lives with a disability, so I'm very conscious. I'm speaking on behalf of them. I've just come off a conversation with Jess, who has CP, and I believe that she would give me permission to have this conversation with you. Is that people with physical disabilities, for instance, who do not have a cognitive disability, i.e., someone with cerebral palsy in a wheelchair versus someone with Down syndrome or autism, have been projected onto them this lack mentality, this you can't do anything anybody else does, but they don't have the cognitive disability, therefore they also other themselves. Let me give you an example because that might have been a little bit confusing. At BAM, we predominantly work with people who have cognitive disabilities. And when I've advertised or tried to welcome people who have physical impairments, there's this idea of like, but I'm not like them, so I don't want to be put into the class with them. because I'm smarter than them, or I don't have all of this language, all of these stories, because not only as someone who is not disabled has developed stories around disabilities and therefore othered myself and had to do a lot of unconscious bias training, the same goes for someone with a disability who has been projected onto them this idea that you're not good enough, you can't do this, you need extra help, all of these stories that has then created this identity in their mind. And so what Jess and I are doing with Flex for Access is trying to empower more people with physical disabilities to join programs like BAM, because at BAM, the disability is secondary, the dance is at the forefront. And so that's what I would also encourage my leaders out there of dance spaces and of movement spaces, is to get really clear on the value that your studio sets and lives by. And disability is just something that can inform the practice. I don't run a disabled dance company. I run a dance company that just happens to work with people with disabilities. And I think when we put the disability at the forefront, we're then always going to be tailoring it to what they can or can't do, or perpetuating the same narratives around disability. This is why I disagree with the idea of dance therapy, because therapy insinuates this need to help and cure and fix. And disability, in my mind, is not something that needs to be helped or cured and fixed. Dance is at the forefront. So I know that I've just gone on a little bit of a ramble. I really would love to work with more studios and more leaders who want to include more people in their spaces, and not just of disabilities. This goes across sexuality, race, gender, age, size. What is your perception of Black people, for instance? What is your perception of gay people? What is your perception of fat people? Where did that come from? And how is it created? And how does it play a role in who you are and how you're showing up as a leader? Because the way we do one thing is the way we do all things, and who we are is how we lead. So yeah, this video was predominantly about disability, but it could be applied to every other situation, social issue, across the board. And as leaders, we need to get really clear, because the more clear we are in ourselves, the more clear and the more space we can hold for others to also do the same. And that's what leadership is. So if this video was a little bit all over the place, I don't really apologize, because I'm just speaking to the heart, from the heart. But check your bias. And the way we do that is by going back and looking at the issue as a child, thinking about how that now plays a role in your behaviors and motivations as an adult, and how that plays a role in your business, in the way that you hire, in the way that you train, in the way that you advertise, in the way that you create classes. We need to be more aware. I hope that was inspiring. Leaders, hit me up. I know you want to have more inclusive spaces, but you just don't know how, and it's on this too hard list, and we just like push it away. It's not that hard. You just have to want to do it. That's where I come in. All right, guys, thank you so much. Hit me up. I've got one-on-one coaching spots wide open. Slide into those DMs. You girls got you. Have a wonderful day. See ya.